Today should be perfect. That's what I told myself when I woke up this morning, early enough to watch the sunrise spill gold across our bedroom walls. Lisa was already up, her side of the bed cool, the faint scent of her shampoo still lingering in the air. That scent, a mix of vanilla and something floral I could never quite name, has always been a comfort to me. 15 years together, and I still catch myself smiling when I catch it on her pillow. Our anniversary. 15 years married, 17 together if you count the dating years, and I do. Every single one of those years matters to me. From the clumsy first dates to the awkward proposal in our tiny kitchen, right up to now, middle-aged, settled, comfortable in the quiet rhythms of marriage. Or so I thought. I had a plan, and I was damn proud of it. Lisa loves surprises, especially the kind where I actually put in effort instead of just grabbing flowers on my way home from work. This year, I went all out. Reservations at the little French place we used to go to before life got busy. The bracelet she's been eyeing for months but refused to buy herself because, as she put it, it's too much for no reason. Well, today's a reason. A damn good one. I even had Laura, my sister, in on it. She helped me pick out the flowers, something more than the grocery store bouquet I usually settle for. She told me to get something personal, so I got sunflowers, the ones Lisa carried in her wedding bouquet. I was giddy, like some kid planning a surprise party. I even thought about writing her a letter, something sappy about how proud I was of the life we built. But I'm not much of a writer, so I let the bracelet speak for itself. Lisa was all smiles at breakfast, quick kisses, coffee, and her teasing me about how I always get sentimental on anniversaries. It's just another day, she said, but I could tell she liked the attention. That's how we are, not always romantic, but we show up when it counts. Or at least, that's what I thought. She told me she had a work trip. Just an overnight, she said, some corporate retreat an hour out of town. It stung, her being gone today of all days, but I played it off. I even joked that it gave me extra time to perfect dinner when she got back tomorrow. She kissed me on the cheek, called me the best husband in the world, and left. I stood in the doorway watching her go, feeling that familiar tug, the one that comes every time she walks away. 15 years, and I still hate watching her leave. The house felt too quiet after that. I cleaned, ran errands, checked my surprise plans twice, anything to keep busy. But the quiet gnawed at me. Something felt off, but I pushed it down. Marriage has ups and downs, right? Sometimes you just feel weird for no reason. Then Laura called. My sister's voice had that edge to it, the one that comes when she's trying to say something without actually saying it. She asked if I'd talked to Lisa yet today. I told her about the trip. Laura got real quiet. Just keep yourself busy today, okay? She said, her tone too careful, too measured. And call me if you need anything. It wasn't like her to be weird on our anniversary. Laura's always been Lisa's biggest fan, the one who teared up during our vows and still calls us her relationship goals. Her weirdness stuck with me. I felt it settle in my gut, heavy and cold. Still, I didn't have a reason to doubt anything. Not really. We've had rough patches, money fights, times we drifted a little. But cheating? That was never us. Not Lisa. Not my wife. Not the woman who cried in my arms when her dad died, who left sticky notes in my lunchbox back when I worked construction, who still traced her fingers along my back when she thought I was asleep. But something was wrong. I just didn't know what yet. And when I found out, I'd wish to God I never went looking. The thing about suspicion is that it starts small, a pebble dropped into still water. A funny look from someone you trust, an odd word choice, the way your sister pauses just a beat too long before saying goodbye. It's nothing, until it's everything. After Laura's call, I tried to brush it off. Maybe she was just being overprotective. She's always been a little too invested in my love life, ever since our parents died and she took on that weird half-sister, half-mother role. She loves Lisa, but she loves me more, and sometimes, that means she sees problems even when there aren't any. At least, that's what I told myself. To kill time, I started cleaning up the house. Not just regular cleaning, The kind where you start reorganizing drawers for no reason, where you find old birthday cards you forgot you kept and receipts from dinners you don't even remember. I was knee-deep in a pile of junk mail when I found Lisa's old phone bill. It was nothing special, just a crumpled envelope from months ago. But my brain, already primed for doubt, latched onto it like a lifeline. I told myself I was being ridiculous as I opened it. Who even looks at phone bills anymore? But there it was, plain as day, a number I didn't recognize, popping up over and over again. Late at night. Early mornings. Lunch breaks. I pulled out my phone and stared at her contact list, scrolling like I'd find something there, some innocent explanation that would make me feel stupid for even looking. I didn't. The number wasn't there. Maybe it was a client, I thought. Or a work thing. Except Lisa never hid work stuff from me. She overshares, if anything, long, winding stories about office drama I could barely follow. If it was work, why did I feel like I'd swallowed a handful of nails? I could have let it go right there. I should have. But that's the thing about doubt, once it's got its hooks in you, it doesn't let go. I called the number. It rang twice before a man's voice answered. Casual, relaxed, like he wasn't expecting anyone important. Hey, he said. I froze. That one word, hey, told me more than I was ready to know. It wasn't the word itself. It was the tone. Familiar. Easy. Like answering your phone in the middle of a conversation with someone you know way too well. I didn't say anything. I just hung up. My heart was pounding, my hands shaking in that weird way where you can't tell if you're furious or terrified. I sat there for a long time, the phone bill still in my hand, my mind spinning out in 1,000 directions. There had to be a reasonable explanation. There had to be. This was Lisa. My Lisa. The woman who held my hand through my mom's funeral. The woman who still wore my old college hoodie around the house. The woman I was about to surprise with a bracelet and a romantic dinner. But that voice, that hey, wouldn't let me go. I wasn't ready to believe it yet. Not completely. So I did the thing you're never supposed to do in a marriage, the thing that turns suspicion into certainty. I tracked her phone. It wasn't hard. We both have that. Find my phone thing linked, a leftover from when we were worried about losing our devices on vacation. I'd never used it for anything else. Until now. I told myself I was being paranoid. That I'd see her little dot exactly where she said she'd be, at some hotel conference center, drinking bad coffee and pretending to care about team-building exercises. Her dot was nowhere near a conference center. It was at David Carter's house. The first thought that hit me was so dumb, I almost laughed. Maybe she left something there. David was a friend, one of my oldest. We went to high school together, played on the same shitty basketball team, got drunk on the same cheap beer. We were close enough that Lisa and I had even spent holidays with him, and whatever girlfriend he was cycling through at the time. But there was no reason for her to be there now. No reason she'd lie about it. Unless... That's when the pebble became a boulder. It didn't roll in gently. It crashed down so hard I felt it in my chest. I stood there, phone in hand, staring at that stupid little dot. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew I couldn't sit still. So I grabbed my keys and left. I don't even remember grabbing my jacket. I just remember the sound of the front door slamming behind me and the way my keys rattled in my hand like I couldn't get a good grip on them. My truck started up on the first try, a small mercy on a day where nothing else felt like it was working in my favor. The drive to David's house wasn't long. 15 minutes, maybe? Not enough time to think things through, but just enough time for my mind to run wild. At first, I tried to make excuses for her. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe she stopped by to drop something off or pick something up. Maybe she was planning some kind of surprise for me with David's help. But none of that made sense, and I knew it. Lisa's not the type to lie. That's what made all of this so impossible to swallow. If you asked me yesterday, I would have sworn on my life that I knew her better than anyone. I knew her laugh, the real one, not the polite one she gave strangers. I knew the way her nose crinkled when she didn't believe what someone was saying. I knew every scar on her body, every bad habit she never quite broke. I knew her. Or at least I thought I did. The thing is, you don't lie about where you are unless you're hiding something. That's the cold, ugly truth I couldn't shake. And when you lie about being at work, on our anniversary, to be at your husband's best friend's house, there's no version of that story that ends well. The sunflowers were still in the passenger seat next to me, wrapped up with that fancy ribbon Laura picked out. They felt ridiculous now. Like a joke I wasn't in on. When I pulled up a block away from David's place, my hands were sweating so bad I had to wipe them on my jeans. I didn't park right in front, that felt too obvious, but I could see his house through the windshield. The blinds were mostly closed, but not all the way. I just sat there for a minute, engine off, heart hammering so loud I swear I could hear it echoing in the empty cab. This was the moment, right here. The moment where I could have turned around. Driven home. Pretended I never saw the dot on the map, never heard that voice answer the phone. But once you open a door like this, there's no closing it again. I grabbed my phone and checked her location one more time, hoping, praying, the dot had moved somewhere else. It hadn't. David's house, same as before. There's a kind of nausea that doesn't sit in your stomach, it sits in your chest, right between your lungs, like your body forgot how to breathe right. That's what I felt sitting there in my truck, staring at my best friend's house, knowing my wife was inside. And I still didn't know what I was gonna do. Confront her? Pound on the door like some jealous lunatic? Sneak around the back and peek through the windows like a creep? None of those felt like me. None of this felt like me. I was the husband who trusted his wife. The guy who planned romantic dinners and saved old ticket stubs because they meant something. I wasn't this guy, the one who tracks his wife and parks down the street from his friend's house, heart racing, stomach twisting, wondering how much of his life is a lie. But I was him now. So I got out of the truck. My legs felt heavy, like I'd aged 10 years just climbing out of the truck. My feet hit the pavement, but it felt like I was walking through water, every step slower than the one before it, like my body was trying to stop me even if my mind wouldn't. David's house hadn't changed much since the last time I was here, a year ago, maybe? Lisa and I stopped by after his dad passed, brought a casserole Lisa made and a bottle of whiskey I figured would do more good. We sat in his backyard that night, all three of us, watching the fire pit burn down to glowing embers. Lisa held my hand, her fingers tracing absent-minded circles on my palm like she always did when she was comfortable. I hadn't thought about that night in months. Now it played in my head on repeat with a whole new meaning. Had it already started then? Had they already found ways to touch each other when I wasn't looking? Were they trading glances behind my back, finding excuses to brush against each other when I went to grab another beer? The thought made me stop halfway up the driveway, my stomach lurching. It's a strange thing, trying to picture your wife with someone else, someone you know, someone you trust. It's like trying to picture your parents having sex. Your brain resists it at first, like it knows you aren't meant to see something like that. But once the door opens, it's impossible to close. I made myself keep walking. I didn't have a plan, not really. I wasn't the type to make a scene. I wasn't gonna scream on the front lawn or throw a punch through a window. That's not me. That's not us. At least, that's what I thought. The front door was closed, the blinds drawn just enough that I couldn't see anything from the street. I stood there, my hand halfway raised to knock, but I couldn't do it. Not yet. What if I was wrong? What if there was some perfectly reasonable explanation, some story that would make me feel like the world's biggest idiot? Maybe she really was planning something for our anniversary, and I was about to ruin the whole thing by showing up like this. Maybe David needed help with something, and she didn't want me to know because it was some personal, embarrassing thing. I wanted to believe that so badly I could taste it. But deep down, I knew better. I stepped off the front porch and walked around the side of the house. David's place was old, one of those mid-century ranches with too many windows for its own good. He had a side window just past the driveway, half covered by a curtain that didn't quite reach the bottom. I don't know what I expected to see when I peeked in. Maybe an empty living room, some proof that I'd let my imagination get the best of me. But the room wasn't empty. Lisa was there. So was David. They weren't even touching, not in that moment. They were just sitting close on the couch, her legs tucked under her, his arm draped across the backrest behind her. It was casual. Familiar. Intimate in a way that had nothing to do with sex, and everything to do with it. I couldn't hear what they were saying through the glass, but I didn't need to. It was all right there, the way she smiled at him, soft and easy, like he was the one person who made her feel understood. The way he leaned in when she spoke, like her words meant something special. The way his fingers brushed against the back of her neck, so light I almost thought I imagined it. That was our couch. Not literally, but that was our body language. Our shorthand. The way she used to sit with me after a long day, when the world felt too big and all she wanted was to curl up beside someone who knew her down to her bones. I should have knocked right then. I should have banged on the glass and demanded answers, blown the whole thing wide open. But I didn't. I just stood there, watching my wife and my best friend, and realizing, maybe for the first time, that there were no good answers left. I don't know how long I stood there, watching them through that half-open curtain. Time felt weird, like I was underwater, everything moving slower than it should. My heart was pounding, my breath shallow, but my body stayed still, like I was afraid to move and make it real. I kept waiting for them to do something. Something obvious. Something I could grab onto and say, there it is, proof. Some kiss, some touch that crossed the line so clearly I couldn't deny it anymore. But they never gave me that. Instead, they gave me something worse, the kind of quiet comfort you only get with someone who knows you inside and out. Lisa leaned into David's side like she'd done it 1,000 times before. He didn't pull her closer, didn't make a move. He didn't have to. They weren't sneaking around. They weren't caught up in the rush of something new and forbidden. They were settled. Comfortable in each other's space. Like this wasn't the beginning of something. Like this was already the middle, and I was the only one who didn't know. That's the part that broke me. Not the sex, I hadn't even seen proof of that, though my gut told me it was there. No, what got me was how easy they were together. How natural. Like they'd been practicing for months, maybe years, how to sit this close and not flinch when the world could see. I should have walked away. I should have marched to the front door, knocked hard enough to shake the frame, and demanded answers. It was my right, wasn't it? My marriage. My life. My wife. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I slipped my phone from my pocket, snapped a photo through the glass, just enough to catch the two of them in that comfortable silence, and turned around. I didn't know what I was going to do with that photo. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. I just knew I needed something solid to hold on to, some piece of proof to remind myself I wasn't crazy. Because there's a moment, when your life starts to split in two, where you doubt your own mind. Where you wonder if you're seeing ghosts because you're too scared of silence. I needed to know this was real. The walk back to my truck felt like walking away from my own body. My feet moved, my hands found the door handle. But my mind was somewhere else, hovering over that couch, that scene, that unbearable closeness between my wife and my best friend. I sat behind the wheel, staring at the dashboard, the sunflowers still beside me like some cruel joke. I could still go home, pretend none of this happened, let tonight play out the way I planned, the bracelet, the dinner, the toasts to 15 happy years. I could do that. I could pretend. Or I could do something else. Something that would break her like she was breaking me. I didn't turn the key right away. I just sat there, the photo still glowing on my screen, and realized I had a choice to make. The kind of choice that splits a life in half. I drove home in silence. No music, no podcasts, nothing but the sound of my own breath and the faint hum of the tires on the road. My hands felt numb on the steering wheel, like they didn't belong to me. My brain kept replaying that image through the window, over and over, until it didn't even feel like my own memory anymore. It felt like a scene from someone else's life. Some poor bastard I was watching from the outside. I pulled into the driveway, but I didn't get out right away. The house looked so normal. The porch light was still on from the night before. A couple of leaves skittered across the pavement. It was just our house, the same place I'd come home to for over a decade, but now it felt unfamiliar. Like I was seeing it through a cracked lens. The sunflowers were still on the seat next to me. I couldn't look at them. They felt stupid now, like a punchline to a joke I wasn't in on. I should have thrown them out, but I didn't. Instead, I left them there, stems bending awkwardly against the console, petals starting to curl. Inside, the house was too quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, the heavy kind, where silence has weight and shape and you're afraid to disturb it. I wandered from room to room, not sure what I was looking for. Proof, maybe. Some sign that the woman I loved was still here, still mine, still real. There was nothing. Just the usual. Her shoes by the door, her mug in the sink, the blanket she always left crumpled on the couch. It all looked so normal, but none of it felt right. I sat at the kitchen table, the one we bought together after our first apartment table collapsed under the weight of a Thanksgiving turkey. I stared at the wood grain, tracing the familiar knots and scratches with my fingertips. How many meals had we eaten here? How many arguments, how many apologies, how many plans for a future I thought was ours? And now? Now I didn't even know what was real. The photo was still on my phone, her and David, too close, too familiar, too easy with each other. I stared at it until my vision blurred, until they weren't even people anymore, just shapes and shadows that didn't make sense. I could confront her. That thought kept circling back, like a mosquito buzzing in my ear. I could call her right now, demand answers, force her to explain what I'd seen. But what if she lied? What if she made excuses so smooth I almost believed her? What if she made me doubt my own eyes? Or worse, what if she told the truth? I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. My phone buzzed. I jumped like I'd been caught doing something wrong, even though I hadn't. It was just Laura. You okay? 3 little words, no context, but somehow she knew. She always knew. I almost called her right then. Almost told her everything, the photo, the window, the way my whole life had started to tilt under my feet. But I couldn't. Not yet. Saying it out loud would make it real, and I wasn't ready to live in that reality. Instead, I texted back, yeah? Just tired. It was a lie, but so was everything else. I spent the rest of the afternoon sitting there, staring at nothing, my mind swinging back and forth between rage and heartbreak, between the man I thought I was and the man I might have to become. And all the while, the choice sat there in front of me, cold, clear, inevitable. Confront her. Pretend. Or plan something else. Something darker. I didn't know which one I'd choose yet. But I knew, no matter what, nothing would ever be the same. I stayed at that kitchen table until the light shifted, the sun dipping low enough to cast shadows across the floor. I should have eaten something. Should have stood up, stretched, done anything to break the spell. But I couldn't. I was stuck in it, this half-life, half-marriage, half-reality where I knew the truth but couldn't decide what to do with it. At some point, I found myself scrolling back through old photos on my phone. Anniversary dinners. Weekend trips. Silly selfies Lisa had insisted on, her face pressed against mine, her smile wide and easy. I looked at those pictures like they were crime scenes, scanning for clues, trying to figure out when the cracks first started. Had it been this past year? Was it there in the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes in that photo from the cabin? Or the way she stood a little too far from me in the picture at David's last barbecue? Or had it always been there, something I'd missed because I was too busy believing we were different? I must have replayed every conversation from the last 6 months in my head, dissecting them for signs. The late work nights, the quiet sighs when she thought I wasn't listening, the sudden need for me time. None of it screamed affair, but now, it all felt like little red flags I'd ignored because I trusted her. I trusted her. That was the part that made me feel the most foolish, How easy it had been to believe we were safe, even after all these years. Like surviving the first rough patches had somehow guaranteed we'd make it through anything. I don't know how long I sat there, but at some point my phone buzzed again. Lisa. Hey babe. Just finished up here. Heading back first thing in the morning. Love you? I stared at those words until they blurred. Love you? Two little words that had carried us through so much. Through moves and layoffs, through sickness and funerals, through all the things life threw at us. And now, they felt empty. Like a reflex instead of a truth. I could have called her right then. Could have asked her where she really was, who she was really with. Could have demanded she say those words while looking me in the eye, love you, and see if they still sounded the same. But I didn't. I just typed back, love you too. Can't wait to see you. A lie wrapped in a memory. I set the phone down, and felt something break inside me. A clean snap, like a bone giving way under pressure. That was the moment I knew I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Because I wanted her to feel it. Not just the guilt, not just the fear of getting caught. I wanted her to feel what it's like when the ground shifts under your feet, and you realize the life you thought you had is gone. I didn't want an apology. I wanted her to know what it felt like to lose everything and not even see it coming. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I lay in our bed, alone, on her side, where the pillow still smelled faintly like her shampoo. I stared at the ceiling, my mind running in tight, endless circles. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sitting next to David on that couch, her body angled toward him, her smile softer than it had been with me in years. Not the polite smile you give your husband out of habit. The kind you give someone who makes you feel alive. It didn't even feel real. Not yet. It was like watching someone else's life fall apart, like seeing the wreckage of a crash on the side of the highway. You slow down, you stare, but you don't really feel it, not until you realize the car is yours. At some point, I got up and walked the house in the dark. Our house. Our life. Every room held a piece of us. Photos from our honeymoon in the hallway, her favorite blanket draped over the couch, the half-burned candle on the coffee table from our last movie night. It all felt like a museum exhibit now, a carefully curated display of a life that didn't exist anymore. I could have confronted her. God knows I wanted to. I could picture it, her walking through the door, tired from her trip, and me standing there with the photo on my phone. No screaming, no theatrics. Just holding up the proof and watching her face crumble. But that felt too easy. Too neat. I wanted something messier. Something that would stick to her ribs the way this stuck to mine. Because here's the thing, it wasn't just the cheating. It was the lie. The casual way she looked me in the eye and told me about her work trip, kissed me goodbye, called me her best husband. All that time, knowing she was going to him. I wanted her to feel that. I wanted her to know what it's like to trust someone so completely, only to feel that trust rot out from under you. So I started thinking. Planning. It wasn't even revenge, not at first. It was survival. When your life splits in half, you need something to hold on to, some kind of control, even if it's just in your head. At first, it was small. Little thoughts. What if I moved her things out of the bedroom before she got back, made her sleep in the guest room without explanation? What if I sent the photo to her phone with no caption, just let it sit there like a bomb with no timer? But the longer I sat in the dark, the bigger the ideas got. What if I waited, played the part of the loving husband a little longer, and then blew up her whole world when she least expected it? What if I made sure David's next girlfriend knew exactly who he was, and who he'd been with? What if I didn't just leave? What if I made her leave, made her beg for a chance to stay, made her explain to everyone we know why our perfect marriage fell apart? The ideas felt good. Almost too good. Because here's the ugly truth, anger is easier than heartbreak. Anger gives you something to do. It fills up the space where love used to live. But the anger didn't change one thing, I still loved her. Even now, even knowing I still loved her. And that's what made me the angriest of all. Morning came, and with it, a cold, gray light that made everything in the house look unfamiliar, like I was seeing it through someone else's eyes. I hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, hadn't done a single thing except sit in that house and think about her. About them. About us, if there even was an us anymore. I heard her car pull into the driveway before I saw it. I didn't get up right away. I stayed at the kitchen table, the same spot where I sat the day before, fingers tracing the same old scratches, phone face down next to my coffee cup. The door opened, and I heard her step inside. The soft jangle of her keys in the bowl by the door. The rustle of her bag hitting the floor. "Babe?" Her voice was light, almost cheerful. "I'm home." Home. The words scraped against my chest like broken glass. I didn't answer right away. I could hear her moving around, her footsteps coming closer, pausing when she saw me sitting there. "Hey," she said softer now. "You okay?" I looked up at her. She was beautiful, even after a long drive. Hair pulled back, makeup faded, the same woman I'd loved for 17 years, except she wasn't, not anymore. She was someone I didn't know. Someone who could sit on another man's couch, smile like that, and then come home to me like nothing had changed. I forced a smile. "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." She came closer, leaned down, and kissed the top of my head. The smell of her shampoo, that same vanilla and something floral, hit me all at once. I used to love that smell. Now it made my stomach turn. "I miss you," she said, and for a second, just a second, I almost believed her. I wanted to say something. Ask her how her trip was. See if she'd lie to my face again, if she'd spin me some story about late meetings and team-building games, all while I had that photo sitting on my phone like a loaded gun. But I didn't. I just stood up, kissed her cheek, and said, "Miss you too." Because I wasn't ready yet. Not to fight, not to forgive, not even to confront her. I wanted to see how far she'd go. How deep the lie would get. If she'd sit across from me at dinner tonight, hold my hand, tell me she loved me, all while carrying him inside her heart. Maybe inside her body too. That's the part that haunted me most, not the act itself, but how easily she could lie with her hands still warm from him. She headed upstairs to shower, and I sat back down at the table, my coffee cold, my hands shaking just enough that I had to clench them into fists. This was my life now, pretending, watching, waiting. I could have ended it right there. I could have held up my phone, shown her the photo, asked her if she remembered to wipe the lipstick off her teeth before she came home to me. But not yet. I wanted her to feel safe first. Completely safe. I wanted her to believe I was still the man she could fool, the man who'd believe every lie just because he wanted to. And then? Then I'd decide if I wanted to forgive her, or destroy her. She spent the afternoon unpacking, humming to herself like nothing was wrong. Like this was just another day in our life together, another anniversary, another quiet night with the man she'd promised forever to. I watched her. Every movement. Every smile. Every little glance my way. I was looking for cracks, signs that guilt was eating her alive, that she was waiting for me to say something, to confront her. But there was nothing. If there was guilt, it was buried so deep I'd need a backhoe to dig it out. That told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't new. Whatever was happening between her and David, it had roots. Deep ones. You don't lie that smoothly unless you've practiced. You don't come home to your husband with kisses and casual smiles unless you've spent months, maybe years, convincing yourself you deserve both lives. One with me, and one with him. Dinner was ready at 6. I cooked her favorite, lemon chicken, roasted vegetables, the works. The sunflowers, the same ones I'd bought before I knew, sat in a vase in the center of the table. I thought about throwing them out, but I didn't. Let her see them. Let her wonder if they were for her, or for the memory of the woman I thought she was. She came downstairs, all dressed up, her hair curled just the way I like it. She looked beautiful. She always did. That was part of the problem. "Happy anniversary," she said, leaning in to kiss me. I kissed her back, slow and soft. I wanted to see if I could feel it, the taste of him, the stain of someone else's hands on her skin. I couldn't. All I could taste was her. We ate, we laughed, we drank a little wine. She talked about her trip, about the training sessions and the awful hotel food. I didn't ask many questions. I just let her lie. And then, after dinner, I gave her the bracelet. Her face lit up when she opened the box, pure, unfiltered joy. For a second, it almost felt real again. Almost. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "You're too good to me." I smiled. "I try." She reached across the table, took my hand. 15 years. Can you believe it? No, I said. And I meant it. We cleared the table together, her humming again, me standing beside her at the sink. It felt normal, the way it always had. That was the part that broke me the most. How easy it was to slip back into routine, even with the weight of that photo burning a hole in my pocket. I could have done it then. I could have pulled out my phone, held it up for her to see, and watched her whole world tilt the way mine had. But I didn't. Because in that moment, standing beside her, watching her smile at me like I was still her whole world, I realized something. I didn't want to destroy her. That would have been too easy. I wanted her to destroy herself. So I let the night play out, soft and sweet. We went to bed together, her head on my chest, her fingers tracing those lazy circles on my skin. The same ones she probably traced on David. And I lay there, silent, awake, letting her think she was safe. Letting her think she got away with it. Because the real punishment wouldn't come from me. It would come from the moment she realized I knew, and I chose to let her live in her lie. To let her sit in our marriage, wondering every day if today would be the day I finally said it out loud. I wanted her to feel the weight of her own guilt. To live with it the way I lived with the truth. Because the truth wasn't just that she cheated. The truth was that I still loved her, and now, I had to decide if love was enough to live with that. That was the real tragedy. The family we built, the love we made, it wasn't gone. It was rotting under the surface, still standing, but hollowed out from the inside. And maybe we'd live with it. Maybe we'd survive. Or maybe one day, the weight of silence would finally crush us. But that was a choice for another day. For now, I held my wife close, kissed her hair, and whispered, "Happy anniversary!" And she whispered it back, never knowing I was already saying goodbye.